ESPN. ESPN Films presents
A hand off to Herschel, left tackle.
Storied Coaches.
It's the best against the best.
Storied Players.
Abby Wambach.
Storied Games. The SEC is storied.
I think the story about Bo Ryan is a story of what if. Could he have taken LSU to greatness? Bo Ryan was a young guy who really related to his football players as a head coach, and he had an energy about him that people just fed off. And he was an innovator as an offensive mind. He was their next great hope to turn that program around, but sometimes things just don't go as you plan them.
There's no team that has an emotional edge. There's no team that has a physical edge, I don't think, going into the game. It's just going to be the team that plays the best football for 60 minutes.
Oh, you're a good politician. I think you touched every base right there.
You've probably heard of the more famous Bo in college football history. But there's another Bo you may not have heard of. In 1980, he was the hottest young head coach in college football. Every school in need wanted to hire him, but only one would win the prize.
We're going to be successful at LSU. Thank you very much.
He hoped to rebuild a champion at LSU. He hoped to return the program to glory as his wife, Suzanne, and daughter, Lene, cheered from the stands. He hoped to become one of the greatest coaches in college football history. He hoped.
The 34-year-old football coach, who had just been named to the position in November, was returning from a recruiting trip last night. What followed was an odyssey that ended in tragedy and remains shrouded in mystery.
His name was Robert Bo Ryan. For 42 days, he was the head coach of the LSU Tigers. He's the Bo you don't know. In 1980, everything happened so suddenly that Suzanne and Lene Ryan never even had the opportunity to set foot inside Tiger Stadium.
Is this your first time at the new stadium?
Yeah.
Your first time ever at the stadium, period.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
Bo had two daughters, Kristen and Lene. Lene was just 9 years old when she lost her dad.
I look at the photos now and I'm like, whoa, it's hard to believe that's my dad. You know, but I was a kid.
The one man who could teach her the most about her father was her uncle, Bo's brother Paul.
This is his sophomore year backfield. Willard Sander, Don Unverfurth, Bo. The winning started when he was a sophomore in high school. The football team was dominant. They just blew everybody out.
Bo and I went through high school. We never lost a game. So we were pretty good.
Probably the best high school football team that ever participated in the state of Ohio. I would bet my life on that. And your father, who was a starting running back and a defensive player, he became quite the star.
As the kid with the winning touch came of age in Niles, Ohio, he happened to come in contact with a storied program 1,000 miles away.
Evening, everybody. This is the LSU Football Network. Get set for the kickoff.
When we were kids, you could get LSU on Saturday night on the radio. And we used to play football in the living room. I'd be Ohio State, and I made her father be LSU. He accepted it, and he got his butt kicked all the time.
Bo Ryan said he was listening to the radio when Billy Cannon went the distance 89 yards against Ole Miss in 1959, and the hair stood up on the back of his neck in Niles, Ohio.
LSU made a lasting impression, but when the time came for Bo Ryan to choose a college, he wanted to be a Buckeye and play for one of the top coaches in the country, Woody Hayes.
If you take it to him, if you don't make mistakes, and you keep taking it to him, hell, there's no question who'll win.
Bo Ryan was a sponge. Everything that Woody Hayes said, he soaked it in.
Playing for Coach Hayes would begin a series of encounters in Bo Ryan's life with men who were, or would one day become, some of the most successful coaches in football.
He was a natural athlete. He had really good speed, quickness, great hands.
Twice, Bo led the Buckeyes in receiving. And as a senior, he was the team's leading rusher. But his athletic accomplishments extended beyond the football field. In 1966, he helped bring Ohio State their only baseball national championship.
There are not a lot of great Ohio State moments at the College World Series. Bo Ryan was one of the anchors on that team that got them there.
He had a choice between signing with the Baltimore Colts out of college or playing professional baseball, and he chose professional baseball.
In 1968, while playing minor league baseball in the Cleveland Indians organization, Bo Ryan met his future wife, Suzanne.
I went out one evening to a nightclub, and he was there with some of his baseball buddies. And he was just so friendly and personable and just really seemed like a great guy.
He had made it to AAA in Portland where he met your mother.
Where he met my mom.
Yeah. And he says, I don't know what I'm going to do. They want me to come back next spring to spring training and be a switch hitter. I said, well, that doesn't sound too good. Why don't you try football? See if the Colts will honor your contract and pay you anything. In the last exhibition game before the season started, got tackled, got up, his foot wouldn't work. He had partially torn his Achilles tendon.
And that was that.
But that's how he got into coaching.
I think the influence of Woody Hayes, he decided, if I can't play it, I'm going to at least coach it.
He knew he wanted to stay in sports. There was never any question. He went back to Ohio State and became a graduate assistant.
The things that he'd learned in the past of all the places that he'd been in high school and at Ohio State, I think he was a natural to be a coach.
In 1969, Bo Ryan left Ohio State for William & Mary to join a promising young coach who'd been on the Ohio State staff.
I felt that Bo Ryan could come down there. He could work with the offense, the running back. He was very smart. He just had an infectious personality, and he was a winner.
I hope it's a game.
When Suzanne and Lene Ryan look around Tiger Stadium, they're left to wonder, what could have been?
Wow. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Could Bo Ryan have been Les Miles before Les Miles? Or even Nick Saban? We'll never know. But we do know that Bo Ryan would not have become a head coach without the help of his mentor, Lou Holtz. In 1972, Holtz left William & Mary for North Carolina State, and Bo Ryan followed.
He was smart enough as a 20-something-year-old to say, this Lou Holtz train seems like a pretty good place to be. I think if I stick with this, I can go places, but I can also learn a lot about how to coach, how to lead, how to run a program.
If I could only bring one coach, it probably would have been Bo Ryan because of the relationship with the players. He advised me, etc. I relied heavily on his instincts.
Okay, let's go.
What we ran at that time was a twin veer.
Today there are so many spread offenses, but back in its day it was unique and it was hard to stop.
Defenses didn't really know how to defend it, so we went up and down the field on a lot of people.
NC State was getting a lot of yardage and putting a lot of points on the board. Everybody looked at Bo as the guy that pretty much ran the offense.
Bo had a great imagination. He put in something that I believe was his idea. They called it the whirly-bird option. I don't remember seeing anybody else do it.
The whirly-bird, the pitch to Sullivan.
It gave teams fits.
This is something no one else had ever seen before. And as a result, they started winning games that, quite frankly, that program wasn't capable of winning before.
The year before Holtz and Ryan arrived, the Wolfpack had gone 3-8, averaging only 13 points a game. With Lou's leadership and Bo's offense, they scored 34 points a game and went 8-3-1 in their first year at NC State, making Bo Ryan one of the most sought-after assistant coaches in the country.
Frank Broyles called him and asked him to come out and interview, and he did, and that was a wonderful opportunity.
Going to Arkansas, basically it was reinforcing that what he was doing was right. His system worked. His coaching technique worked.
The Razorback running attack begins to take charge.
For Bo Ryan, Woody Hayes paved the way to Lou Holtz, and Holtz helped him grab the attention of Frank Broyles. As offensive coordinator at Arkansas, Ryan encountered another rising star. On the other side of the ball stood a determined defensive coordinator, Jimmy Johnson. Together, they coached the Razorbacks to a Southwest Conference title and a Cotton Bowl victory.
In one of the great comebacks in Cotton Bowl history, Arkansas had decisively beaten Georgia.
Bo took our offense to Arkansas and had great success.
When Lou Holtz jumped to the NFL's New York Jets in 1976, it left a head coaching vacancy at NC State. At age 30, Bo Ryan's time had come.
New NCSU coach. I'm not Lou Holtz. I'm Bo Ryan.
That's right. Yes, that's exactly right. And he was himself.
At North Carolina State, Robert Bo Ryan, the youngest head coach in the nation. This is a team that'll be tough to handle.
Watch him grow and mature and take on the responsibility of being the head coach. It was just a fun time.
He kept momentum going in a program that was used to a lot of lows. Winning back-to-back bowl games, winning an ACC championship. The things that Bo Ryan did in his short period of time at NC State, you could argue are still greatest moments in the history of the program.
There is Bo Ryan, hoping to continue to mastermind what has been a thrilling comeback for the Wolfpack.
People thought so much of him, and his players thought so much of him. I mean, he just loved his players.
At NC State, Bo Ryan molded a tough Pennsylvania linebacker into his team captain. Ryan took the young man under his wing because inside this linebacker's body, he saw a coach's mind. His name, Bill Cowher.
One thing I always liked about playing for Bo Ryan was that for a young guy, he could stand up there and had answers.
You gotta have momentum when you go against Penn State. And I'll say this right now, there aren't many teams that think they can whip Penn State that they play, but I think we're one of them.
He was a young guy. He could relate to us, talked at our level. We maximized how good we could be. And that to me is what a good football coach is. There was a great sense of pride playing for Bo Ryan.
You know that when people see what this coach is doing, that they're going to come get him. They're going to come want him and take him to one of the palaces of college football.
One thing I'll never forget, when it was announced that Charlie McClendon was going to be retiring at LSU, I remember Bo saying, man, what a job that would be.
After a long fall of a lot of speculation of who's going to take over, we had our man.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present our new football coach at LSU, Coach Bo Ryan, and his very lovely wife, Suzanne. Thank you very much.
LSU is a tremendous school. For Bo to go there was a good move for him. I felt he'd be very, very successful. But now I wish he hadn't gone.
There's no Cinderella's glass slipper here. There's no one coach that there he is for LSU. But I promise you this, if hard work, dedication, and respect for tradition mean anything, we're going to be successful at LSU. Thank you very much.
Bo came in and you felt like this guy is going to take us up a level. This guy is going to make a difference.
Very intelligent, very articulate, just made a wonderful, wonderful impression.
He had been accepted so well into the family and into the LSU tradition already. There seemed to be kind of a rebirth of LSU football when he was named the head coach.
We were looking for the bright young coach, and so I think he fit that mold.
Finally, he was getting a chance to coach in an elite program.
We just felt like we were going to win the national championship at LSU.
I recalled seeing Ryan and his staff on the street singing. They were practically dancing with joy because they felt like they had come to this hallowed institution of college football and that they were going to win a national title.
When you can coach the team with the reputation LSU has, we better be ready to play.
Hired by LSU in November of '79, Bo Ryan set out to reshape the program in his image. He needed his type of players, so he began recruiting almost immediately. Only 42 days into the job, he headed to nearby Shreveport, Louisiana. The day was January 10th, 1980.
I ran with him that morning, and he was talking about where he was going, who he was going to see, and then he'd be back tonight.
I was still in North Carolina, so yeah, I hadn't talked to him in a couple days.
I was in Shreveport recruiting a kid. Next morning, I walked into the football office. I said, "Where's Bo?" And they go, "You haven't heard?"
Louisiana State University football coach Robert Bo Ryan and pilot L.S. Binscotter had taken off from Shreveport on what was to be a 40-minute flight to Baton Rouge.
Experienced pilot, Louis Binscotter. You would think nothing would happen on that flight. It's an hour, a little over an hour most.
They should have been down within an hour in Baton Rouge. And we didn't know exactly where they were.
As controllers watched a blip on a radar screen, the plane climbed higher, past 33,000 feet, the maximum for which it was designed, to over 40,000 feet. After that, there was radio silence.
Phones were ringing all over the office. You know, a radio report goes out, Bo Ryan's plane is missing. Immediately people start calling, wanting updates. And not just media, just fans, just people wanting to know. They'd heard the news.
My mother was very upset. She said, "Somebody's been calling here, and he seems to be really, really anxious to talk to you."
Was the plane still flying at the time?
No. It had gone down.
Across Louisiana, the news came as a shock. LSU's new head football coach, 34-year-old Bo Ryan, was killed in a bizarre airplane crash Thursday night.
We actually had people calling and crying on the phone because they had embraced Bo Ryan already and considered this just a tragic loss for the LSU family.
This new personality who's going to win us a championship again, all of those high hopes, all of a sudden you're kind of lost.
We lost somebody before we really got a chance to know him, or his family, or his kids.
It was a very, awful, tragic time for our family.
I just always thought he was kind of invulnerable. I just couldn't fathom that that could have happened to him.
We were almost inseparable. Not only brothers, but best friends.
It was concluded that Bo Ryan's plane likely lost cabin pressure between Shreveport and Baton Rouge. As he and the pilot lost consciousness, the plane drifted 1,000 miles from its plotted course before disappearing forever into the Atlantic Ocean.
I do think about my dad a lot, of course, while I'm here. I mean, we came here a lot in the summer on vacations with his family, you know, and then, of course, he died here.
The most ironic thing of all, Bo's plane flew right over Raleigh, North Carolina, where he came from.
It was just a goodwill of fate that they end up going over Raleigh, almost his way of saying goodbye to his wife and kids.
The whole life that we led, you know, that involved football, so exciting, just ended.
It's hard. It's hard for somebody that was so influential in a lot of people's lives, including mine, to lose him at such an early age. I was in a state of shock.
We've lost a chance to see this guy becoming a great football coach, a legend. He's so young. He could have coached for 30 years.
What LSU has seen under Nick Saban and Les Miles quite possibly could have been a much longer period of the golden age. There have been 9 coaches since Charlie McClendon, and if Bo Ryan had lived, it's possible there would have only been 1.
From learning under Woody Hayes, one of the all-time greats, to following his mentor Lou Holtz's march onward to victory, to his fellow coordinator Jimmy Johnson's future championships, and to his protege's super success, Bo Ryan's legacy quietly lives on.
When you see Bill Cowher, he couldn't be who he is without Coach Ryan.
He was like a father in many ways. Coach Ryan actually allowed me to come back to NC State to be a grad assistant. That was my first taste of coaching. I liked it, and I guess you would say the rest is history.
In present-day sports, what's important is fleeting, and memories fade quickly. So in Tiger Stadium, nearly 35 years later, would anyone remember the coach that never coached a game for LSU? Would any of the 100,000 Tiger faithful remember Bo Ryan?
Tiger fans, please welcome to the field Suzanne Klein and Linnea Ryan, the wife and daughter of former LSU football coach Bo Ryan.
I mean, I was in the press box. It just got to me. I mean, you're never supposed to cry in a press box. But it just took me back to that day. And like what could have been. And the fact that there's so many people in that stadium who still knew about that and just went crazy because they want to let them know they've never forgot him. They still love him. And they know he would have been great. Would have been great.
A lot of excitement down here in the locker room, and we have with us Bo Ryan and Tom Lewis, who just officially tendered that offer to North Carolina State for the Tangerine Bowl.
We needed this kind of game. We needed a win, even though it was a workmanlike one. You know, you can write a book about any one game, either the preparation or the actual game itself. No 2 games ever unfold the same.